Hello, and welcome to World Water Week. A world with secure and sustainable access to wash services requires mobilizing diverse yet interconnected stakeholders. Today, we'll delve into the challenges of attracting private capital into the wash sector in developing markets and speak to those at the forefront of this effort. Welcome very much to our speakers today. We're joined by Suresh Krishna of Yunus Social Business, who will share his dual perspective as a social business promoter and fund manager, emphasizing the importance of balancing impact with returns. Pamela Bundi from the Finish Mondial program will discuss the importance of leveraging local knowledge and South-to-South experience sharing to scale successful initiatives. And Carolina Latorre, a senior manager with Waste, will explore the role of technical assistance and innovative finance in creating an enabling environment for investment. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here. Carolina, I'd like to start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the state of private financing within the wash sector today, and what are the major barriers to private investment within developing markets?
Thank you, Adina. The big gap, I think we all know it very well, but we're talking about 114 billion of capital investments gap to achieve SDG 6 on time, right? And when you look at that, about 80% of countries have reported insufficient financing. We're talking about insufficient public investment. So it's very clear that we're not going to get there with just public money. And it's growing, there's growing understanding and recognition that we need to mobilize private sector involvement and financing into the wash sector. To that, we also need to think that most of the wash services are provided by small and medium enterprises. So they're about 40% of GDP and low and middle income countries. But when you look at wash, those businesses provide 90% of the services. So we're talking about a big piece of that cake that is the financial gap for SDG 6, right? And so why private investors are not eating that cake? It's not that they don't like to make profit. There's a big opportunity there. But when you look at developing markets, you need to think about, well, there's regulatory uncertainty, there's infrastructure challenges, but there's also data gaps and lack of access to information. So investors can very hardly measure the impact and understand the possibilities of returns, right, when they get into that market. But when we look at these challenges, it's not just about trying to attract more funding, more money to flow in. It's also to prepare the enabling environment to make sure that those fundings are used efficiently and effectively. And some of the things that are very challenging are, well, first, we need to have the right policies. But to have the right policies, you have to inform them well. So policy designers need to know how the market looks like, right? We also need to make sure that once you have those policies set and the right objectives set, that the incentives that are there are aligned to those objectives. Because if you have incentives, mobilized and funding for something that is not aligned with the current policies, then you get the money in the wrong places. And the other thing is that this systemic change we're talking about doesn't happen overnight. So one thing that is very challenging for investors is that all these things take time, right? But the good thing is that we, at Waste, for example, we already are working with financial innovators, mobilizing this and preparing the groundwork. So trying to prepare the ground for investors to come in and also take the jump as we have. So it's not all green.
Yeah, so you're really, I hear very strongly there, it's about creating the right environment, that enabling environment. But I think also for maybe our viewers might not know, I thought that was astonishing when you said 90% of the services are provided by small and medium-sized enterprises. Yeah. That's enormous, and yet we have this huge funding gap towards them. So I think it's really interesting what you're saying about that need for data, but also creating that right place for private sector to come in and provide that. Thank you so much for that. Suresh, Carolina has already highlighted some of the challenges investors are currently facing, but from your experience and the specific roles that you have, how are investors currently navigating these challenges and structuring investments to provide sustainable financing for those small and medium-sized enterprises that we just mentioned?
Thanks, Kanika. Um, See, if you look at, like Carolina said, it's 98% of the enterprises providing solutions to the water is the small and medium enterprises. If you look at most of the small and medium enterprises, the tiny enterprises which are providing the last mile services in the wash space, they all are coming from, mostly most of the people who are coming there are people who want to solve this problem. I mean, get access to the people who do not have access to water, do not have access to sanitation facilities, or look at how do we solve the problem of managing the waste in those areas. So all these enterprises today are very nascent. I mean, this is an important problem people are trying to solve. The business models are still evolving. It's not that we have a fabulous, super scalable, highly profitable, or highly impactful models out there. All of them, a lot of innovations are happening there. A lot of technologies are flowing in. A lot of people out there are trying to see how do they make maximum impact in the wash area. So here, the investors today kind of find it difficult to look at these models. I mean, most investors want to make the big investment so that it's easy for them to manage their investments and so on. At the same time, the formal financial sector out there, which is compromising of banks or regular financial investors, they find this difficult to actually invest in these kind of entities because of the business models are not fully proven yet, and they might not be financially sustainable many times yet. So that's where the challenges are coming for the investors to actually look at the sector. But if you look at the other side of the coin here, is these are the enterprises which are going to scale up for tomorrow. These would be the businesses or the SMEs which is going to become attractive for larger investments tomorrow. So this is the missing space which is out there. So the investors need to look at it as this is their opportunity for create the markets for tomorrow. So most of these small and medium enterprises are very promising today. They are solving an important problem, which is need to be done. This is a need of the hour. Like we have such kind of enterprises solving this problem. So we need to encourage them. So there are different kind of institutions with different kinds of pockets of money, which can kind of provide blended financing services to them, or provide more patient capital. That's what we do at YSB. We provide patient capital. So if we more investors who can come in, if they look at long-term horizon, these are very, very promising business models. These are all solving two things. One is it is solving the problem in the world, and at the same time, it can be financially sustainable. So by combining their long-term interest and the problem of the world, I think the investors can actually have a real impact of their work.
I just want to ask a very quick follow-up. I mean, I'm saying quick. I hope you'll be able to respond more quick as well. What you're saying, I mean, it's increasingly complex, it sounds like. There are many different layers to this. But another layer is that the return on investment here is not just about dollars and cents. It's also about that social impact. And so I'm curious to hear how can investors take that into account? How can investors, I guess, quantify that benefit in terms of the return on investment?
See, this space of WASH is like about inclusion. Like there's so many people out there who are excluded. I mean, I think you can know the statistics of how many people do not have access to clean drinking water today or have better sanitation facilities. So if an investor looks at is that I'm able to include all these people or provide access to all of these people, that's the biggest social impact which they can be looking at. At the same time, they don't need to be throwing away charity money out there. This can be sustained as a sustainable business models. So most of the SMEs whom we are all working now are all looking at sustainable business models. They want to be financially sustainable, at the same time making an impact. So you can see for investors now, they can look at both these as their outcome.
Okay, I'm following you there. Pamela, I want to quickly come to you now. Sorry, not quickly, I want to come to you now. I know that scaling solutions and sharing knowledge across the global south are areas of deep importance to you. So tell me, how is Finish Mondial leveraging local experiences and fostering south to south knowledge sharing, and what roles have partnerships played in scaling those efforts?
Thank you very much. To start with, it's key to highlight that Finish Mondial focuses on two continents, that is Asia and Africa. And out of that, we have had a lot of knowledge sharing across the two continents. One, borrowing from the microfinance model that began in Asia, which we've replicated across the 4 African countries where we operate. And with this, we have supported the microfinance institutions within these countries to understand the wash sector, what is in it for them to venture into this, and how to structure various wash solutions targeting the communities and small entrepreneurs within the space. Secondly, it's also we have leveraged on digitization on the same, and mainly to reduce the cost of acquisition, and this is out of some of the challenges that we have seen with the microfinance institutions that we work with. The cost of acquiring new clients is high, and the African countries specifically are advanced when it comes to digital lending. So we've leveraged on that to enhance access to finance to the small entrepreneurs.
So it sounds like, I mean, you're really following the times. You're growing and evolving as the societies around you also grow and evolve. I mean, it sounds fascinating, particularly this lean towards more digitization. Carolina, I'm going to come back to you. I want to learn more about how waste is facilitating the growth of initiatives like Finish Mondial, and also if you can tell us a little bit about this Take a Stake initiative.
Thank you, Kanika. Look, I think Suresh and Pamela have brought up a little bit of that systemic way of working, and that's what we do at Way. So we're trying to bridge the gap, bringing the entrepreneurs, but also scaling up with access to finance in a way that is systemic. So we believe that you have to engage different stakeholders to act in collaboration together, right, to make it happen. And so you need to work with the government, the local authorities, the guys that are running the local policies, the rules of the game in that community. You need to work with the financiers, like Pamela was saying. You know, the financiers also need to understand a bit more about what is the wash like entrepreneurs. So how is the market working? But then again, you also have the solution makers, the entrepreneurs, the businesses that they need to be able to absorb. So I was saying before, it's not just about attracting the funds, but also to make sure that the businesses are ready. And then the community. So if you have a community that knows what they can access, how life is going to change when they can solve their, it's not numbers for them, right? It's having a toilet, it's having a running water system that is healthy for their families, that they can go to work because they don't get sick using the water from the tap. You know, it's working that ecosystem and making sure that that system is sustainable. So that's how we work with partners in the Take a Stake. Well, first, Pam was talking about the Finish Mondial program that was addressing one segment of the SMEs. In the Take a Stake initiative, what we did was looking at those SMEs that were in the Finish Mondial that, you know, became well served with access into microfinances, and then they grew up. They wanted to scale up, and they were not ready for commercial finance yet. So how do you do that? And so in Take a Stake initiative with the partners like Yunus social businesses and others, we are trying to address that missing middle. But while working, we realize that there's a missing middle within the missing middle, right? So to make a pilot work, we look at those that we could help now. But if we get, for example, access to grant funding to bridge finance those smaller ticket sizes that are still, you know, too big for micro, but not ready for our pilot or for commercial funding, then you can do more. There's also capacity building in different segments. It could be business development or technical assistance in the wash parts. So that's also something we can do. And we are inviting others to join, to jump in and to take a stake, like the program it's called, right? The other thing is that we can also work in a way that it's not just wash. So, the way somebody has said that water is so connected to all the SDGs, that's also how we look at investments. So, when you look at just water, for example, you cannot solve the water problem if you don't address the waste problem, right? So, we are also working at a portfolio that balances well the risks on wash to make sure that you have something that is attractive. And I think last but not least, we are also working to share that information to create a community that makes everybody involved more aware of it, so we can have better natural environment in the future as well.
I mean, I hear a lot of different elements coming there. One thing that really stood out for me, what you were saying, is that it's not just about attracting those funds, but making sure that those SMEs are actually ready to absorb them.
Exactly.
But also that really important step of now we are growing out of being just a small enterprise. We're moving into that middle area, but there's no support for me there. So I think it's a really important gap that you're highlighting. Thank you for that. I have a question for all of you, but I'm going to start with you, Pamela. What do you see as the biggest pressing challenges and really the most exciting opportunities for strengthening investment in the wash sector? And what's needed to get us there towards a path of greater financial sustainability for these small and medium-sized enterprises?
Thank you very much for the question. So the small enterprises are considered very risky, which means the microfinance institutions and other financial institutions willing to lend to them are skeptical because of the risks involved. So one of the ways to support them is to provide a dedicated line of credit, which will give comfort to these financial institutions to venture into this space and give it the required focus. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing from you there, that dedicated line of credit, it sounds like we also need to extend a little bit of confidence that we know, and I think that you were also pointing this out, Suresh, that we can trust there's enough demand there. We know that there is enough interest in having these, so we need to maybe have a little bit more trust when we're starting to give out these lending or these financial tools. Suresh, I'm going to ask the same question to you. What's needed to get us on the path of greater financial sustainability for these SMEs?
I would say a few things need to be there to get these SMEs to be sustainable. One is there's a lot of ecosystem and the policies at the government level need to be put in place so that these SMEs will have a better growth pattern. Because these business models take little longer time to become sustainable. So there need to be patience with the investors. At the same time, there should be good policy environment to actually support that solving these problems, whether it is water, or whether it is sanitation, whether it is waste, everything, it all thrives with a greater support from the whole ecosystem. So there is a need for building such ecosystems in place. We need to have consortiums of people. Of course, there are already out there in the market today. A lot of people are building consortiums, bringing in specialized interventions and support to such wash SMEs out there. So that is one thing which is important. So once those ecosystem supports, then these SMEs will become financially sustainable very easily. One other point we should also look at is these are all SMEs run by very committed young entrepreneurs who are really committed to solving the problem. So I think one of the key things which the investors always look at is who is the person who is running this SMEs, and you can be rest assured that these are people highly committed and who want to really solve this problem. So that's where there's a huge opportunity for trusting them and then actually investing in that entrepreneur. So we might not have all the solutions to all the problems we have today, but these are all committed to solve all these problems. So the business models will evolve and will become sustainable with the support from the ecosystem, because support from the government, support from various corporate houses who, if they start embracing the fact of being a circular economy, and we have kind of looking at solving the climate issues, which is the biggest issue which we'll have on water, or we become more responsible in terms of consumption. I think these are all needs to be done with support from the entire stakeholders. I think the primary stakeholders might be the government and the public at large, but the key important factor to enable all these things is these SMEs. So that is where they become an important actor, and they need investment, and we should be providing investments to them.
Perfect. Carolina, we only have 30 seconds left. So I'm going to ask you, what are the big opportunities? Where do you see us going? Please.
Well, I think collaboration, right? The big challenges are there. We know them, but I think the opportunities are even larger. And we do need all the pieces of the pie to come together. So, like Suresh said, we need still the public financing, but in a smart way to leverage the private funding that is there. There's a huge opportunity there, and we can scale up. So I think we're going to talk a lot about scaling up the rest of the week, and there's institutional knowledge that we have, so building the groundwork. We're happy to share it. So I hope that motivates some others to jump in.
Brilliant. I mean, that sounds like a great way of ending our session. Let's come together and try to tackle these challenges as one united water sector. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carolina, Pamela, and Suresh. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you all for joining us wherever you're joining us from. Have a great day.